Okay. All right, great. Okay, welcome to the Grow the Family podcast. We've got James and Tori Price here. How are you guys doing today?
Great. Thank
Good.
you.
How are you?
Doing great. Okay, so give us just brief introduction of, you know, where you guys are from, just anything, basically, just a brief introduction.
Okay. Well, like you said, we're Tori and James. We're both originally from Idaho. We currently live in Georgia though, and this is what we call home. And we've been together-ish. How many years now?
Yeah, I
I,
don't
I
know.
think we'll get into that a little bit.
We will.
I mean, we we got married the first time when we were 19. I was
Mhm.
19, James was 21, so that was almost 20 years ago. And then we've been remarried to each other for about 5 months now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so recent.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited to hear all about it. Okay, great. Okay, well, let's just, I mean, this is an infertility type podcast, and so let's start there. What can you tell us about your infertility journey, diagnosis, challenges? Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to cover this part?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can.
We started trying to have kids about a year and a half, 2 years after we got married. And it was just the beginning was really kind of a flurry of different things. We were in college, and so we were just going to kind of like our college health clinic to see what was happening, which wasn't super helpful. At first, I had been like struggling with acne and weight gain and things like that. And so they automatically assumed that I must have PCOS. And so we kind of looked into a few things with that. But then eventually we had James tested, did like a sperm analysis, and realized that his sperm count was extremely low. And we found out he had what was called a varicocele. Um,
Yeah, so basically just spider veins.
Okay.
So can't regulate temperature, and so it affected the ability to create sperm.
mhm,
Okay. Gotcha.
Um,
yeah.
and so I had that fixed from through a surgery.
That
What?
was after we did IVF, though.
Yeah, that was after the
So,
first.
yeah,
Oh,
But
okay. So y'all
yes.
tried IVF.
Hmm.
Were y'all able to get, I assume you were able to get sperm for IVF,
mhm.
Hmm.
but it didn't take? Did it work that first
It
time?
Not the first time. So we did for our oldest, so we have three kids. For our oldest daughter, we did a fresh cycle and then two frozen cycles. The first one didn't work at all. The first frozen one, we got pregnant and had a miscarriage between at about 8 weeks, actually. And then with our third one, our second frozen cycle, we got pregnant that time with her.
Okay.
Um, and that was by the time we finally got pregnant with her, that was all of the embryos from that whole cycle. And so we
Okay.
didn't have anything left. While we were pregnant with her, he had the surgery to get the varicocele fixed. Sperm count improved drastically. And so we were hoping that like from there on out, we wouldn't have to do that again. But then when our oldest was 3 months old, 2 months old,
Yeah.
about 2 months old, we found out that he had testicular cancer.
Wow.
And so we had him sperm bank mostly because just chemo in general. Like obviously we knew that
Right.
without a testicle, sperm count was going to go down again. But
Right.
also
Right.
he was going to have to do chemo, and even with that, they like recommend that you bank your sperm because it can cause damage or,
Mhm.
birth defects, all kinds of different things. And so we just did that to be safe anyway.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because so like my count improved, but not significantly. And so like we were scrambling to try and have like get enough sperm stored to before I started treatment because the chemo increases risk of birth defects and Down syndrome like crazy. And so you have to wait at least 5 years to try and have a kid. after chemo naturally. And so that's why our thought process was, well, we don't want to wait that long. Um, and so finally we were able to get everything taken care of, and I started chemo,
Mhm.
and then so that's in about a year after stopped chemo.
Yeah, because they're about 3 years apart. So we had our second one 3 years later. Um, yeah, and we can tell you all the details of that whole story. I don't know if you want to ask us questions about each individual thing or if you just want us to jump through the whole story.
No, y'all keep sharing. We'll jump in if we have any
Okay.
questions. Yeah.
Well, Hudson, so we call him like the baby we won or our lottery baby because at the time, this whole time we're in college. So we're freaking poor as can be. Just
Right.
so poor.
Yeah.
I remember actually you had just graduated when we started, but in the beginning we were in college. But when we actually started IVF, he had just graduated, but we're getting ready to go into medical school. So we're just so poor. And with Isla, she's our oldest. We were so lucky because I was on my dad's health insurance, which happened to be based out of California, even though we didn't live there. And so I remember going to the first appointment, and we thought it was just a consultation, but for
Mhm.
people that have been through this, you get there and they kind of went through everything and they were like, okay, and we can start on January 15th or whatever. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, and we'll just bring you $30,000 that day. Yeah, right. Like but at the same time, you want to have a baby so bad that I literally was like, okay, we'll be there. And then we get in the car and James like, what are you talking about? Like, how are we gonna pay for this? All these questions that I'm like, who cares? We'll figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
work.
We'll
And
find $30,000 somewhere.
but then they like ran our insurance and they were like, oh, so at the time, and I don't know if this has changed, but only 7 states in the US required fertility coverage, and California was one of them. And since my dad's company was based out of California and I was under 26, so I could still be on his insurance, it was covered. So her whole thing cost like $5,000 by the time.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. But then, so I had her right at 25.
Which is like 25% of our annual salary. That's
Yeah, it was like all my finances. So
Still a
it
lot of
was,
money.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was still everything. I mean, I remember actually when we did the last Frozen cycle, I did call my dad and I was like, Dad, I hate to ask you for anything, but can we just have $1,000 to finish this last cycle? And he was like, yeah, Tori, $1,000 is not that much money. But it's like at the time for us, it was so much
It was
money.
so much.
And so then with Hudson, by then I was off of my dad's insurance and I can't remember. I kind of think my sister maybe told us about it was called Footsteps for Fertility. And I don't know if they're still around. I think they kind of faded away a little bit during COVID.
Yeah.
Obviously just because there weren't so many in-person things. But they would do a 5K where you would build a team. It could be virtual, in person, whatever. But essentially, everybody that was on your team got a raffle ticket. They had to pay $25 a ticket,
Mhm.
and we had to pay maybe some sort of entrance fee. But then the doctor that we had used, which I don't know if you want our doctor
No.
name. Or something.
Yeah. I mean, if you're willing to
Yeah.
share, because who
So
knows who it could
yeah,
help.
we did all of our treatments at Idaho Center for Reproductive Medicine, and that's based in Boise. I know that they have like partner practices. I think they have one in Utah. Pretty much everything was done with Dr. Slater, and she's incredible. She really is. We did do one of our egg retrievals was done with her partner, Dr. Moss, and he is also phenomenal. But so Footsteps for Fertility. They partnered with Idaho Center for Reproductive Medicine. And essentially, at the end of the 5K, they raffled off a free IVF cycle. It included everything except for your medications.
Wow.
And so, yeah. So we did this 5K, and at the end of it, they drew my brother's ticket, and it was us. And so we won Hudson, basically.
Wow.
And yeah, it was incredible. And with him, we did one cycle, and it used all of our eggs.
Yeah.
Basically, like we had 8 eggs that were good, and then maybe out of that, it was only 6 that were viable, and then only 2 like went to the stage of,
Like
that
that's
were
the stage.
grade A eggs. And
Mhm.
so they implanted both of them, and only one took. That one was rough. I got ovarian hyperstimulation.
Okay.
And so for the first, after the 2-week wait, I, found out that we were pregnant, and but the hyperstimulation was horrible. And for anyone that hasn't experienced it or doesn't know what it is, it's basically during the egg retrieval and everything, they're stimulating those follicles to grow as big as they can get them. But then once they retrieve the eggs, sometimes your body just keeps pushing all this fluid to those follicles that aren't really there anymore.
Hmm.
My whole stomach was filling up with fluid. Like all the space within my stomach was filling up with all this fluid, and I'd have to go get it drained every couple of days. And one day they drained 9 liters of fluid from my
Oh
body.
gosh.
Yeah.
So it would make me, I'd get so swollen, I was like throwing up because there was so much pressure.
Oh wow.
And yeah, shortly after the 2-week wait, I woke up one day and like my chest up here was swollen. We have like the craziest stories, to be honest. So it just seems like one after another. It really was. So I woke up
Yeah.
and right here was all swollen. And I was just like, James, this is so weird. Like, this is not, I don't know
Normal.
if it's related. And then my neck started to hurt. And so eventually I just was kind of really uncomfortable. And I sent a picture to Dr. Slater, and she's like, you need to come in right now. And I went in and I walked in the office, and she goes, go to the emergency room. You have a blood clot. And I was like,
Gosh.
great. So go to the emergency room.
Yeah, and I was like a second year or third year
Yeah,
medical
James
student,
is a medical student. He's
and
like,
I thought I knew everything.
"Med,
He's like, let me give you a massage, put some ice on it, some
let
heat.
me give you a massage. Let's just dislodge that blood clot." So I had a blood clot
Oh,
in my what
Subclavian.
in my subclavian.
wow.
And so that was causing all the swelling. I had been coughing, and so I had like thrown all these blood clots into my lungs. I had like a ton of pulmonary embolisms. And I go into the ER, and they want to do is it a CAT scan with contrast to see?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they wanted to do a CAT scan, but they're like, "Are you pregnant?" And I was, we had just done our HCG labs, and I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I am. Chemically, yes. Like I'm trying to explain this to them and not
Right.
get my hopes up, all of the things. And they're like, well, how far along are you? I'm like, 2 weeks. And they're like, well, then you don't really know. And I'm like, well, we do know. We did IVF, and I won't tell you that doctor's name, but I do remember
Like
it.
we don't want to
Yeah.
go with him.
But anyway, essentially, like after, and he was like, "Oh, I doubt you have a blood clot. Like you're young, you're healthy, you don't smoke, all these things." And I'm like, my fertility specialist said that I did, and I would trust her with my life at this point.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they do the CT, and he's like, "Well, you have a blood clot. It's pretty bad." And
Yeah.
so from there on out, like I had to do Lovenox for my last 2 pregnancies, that one, and then one more. But yeah, I basically just spent a week in the hospital under observation and on blood thinners. And it was one of those like, now that we know what's wrong, it's not that big of a deal. We just have to
Right.
watch you. So you're just like sitting there lonely, like doing nothing. I was in Idaho. James was back at school already in Arizona. So I just like sat there and was miserable for
And
a
you
week.
had your daughter, right?
Yeah, and I had my daughter, so my mom was taking care of her, and she didn't really like to come into the hospital, obviously. Like it was sad, it was scary. She was only 2 at the time.
Hmm.
And so that was really hard and super lonely. Like that was kind of the worst. But that's another thing about Dr. Slater. I remember one night at 10 10:30 at night, she came in and brought me magazines and she's like, "I'm sorry I couldn't be here sooner. Like I just finished at the clinic." And I was like, "I don't expect you to be here at all, you know?"
Yeah, you're like, I'm in the ER, not in the
Yeah.
fertility
I
clinic.
mean, and you could tell that she had just come from a full day at work and she has, I think she's got twin boys or something like that. Like, so she has her own life and family and
Right.
kids, but she really like always went above and beyond. I mean, she really is so personable and just genuinely cares about every single one of
Yeah.
her patients for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Really neat. James, I'm really curious. So what type of doctor are you? Did you finish the
Yeah,
med
I
school
did
life
finish.
and
Um, so I'm a neurologist now.
okay.
And so I think I was thinking back over this for a while and I was like, man, it was really hard. Um, but then it feels hard looking backwards, but I don't feel like it seemed as hard going through it. I think every step of the way for all three kids, it just kind of was like, oh, look at all these blessings, that we have. And
Mm,
we're pretty religious and we lean a lot on our faith. And, I think every step, it was just like, yes, we're going through this hard thing, but look at these amazing people we're meeting, or look at these things that are falling into place, like the
mm,
insurance with our first one and the winning the second cycle ended up being expensive again because of complications and medications and things.
right.
Mm.
But I was on a military scholarship,
Okay.
uh, and and so I remember I made $24,000 a year during medical school, and Tori has a better memory than me, but I feel like every child cost $5,000.
Mm,
Pretty much. I mean,
And so, here we are making 24,000 a year and spending five of it um,
to have a
on
child.
babies. And, it never seemed like a hardship. I couldn't have imagined anywhere more important to put that money.
Yeah.
Um, and so I, I also feel like younger version of me, dumber version of me, um, didn't quite realize everything that Tori was going through. And I was so career focused during that stage of life that, I wasn't there when we won Hudson's transfer.
Mm,
I was in Arizona going to school, and I wasn't there when she was in the hospital. And I think that was really hard.
mm,
Um, and I didn't see it as much back then as Tori's pretty independent and very self-driven and takes care of herself. She moved across the country with two dogs, three kids, and like 20 chickens. And so, I mean, by herself. And so I always kind of thought she was so independent, but I also came to realize like years later that, I probably wasn't nearly as supportive as I should have been. Um, I think part of that is just me being young, um,
mhm.
me being male, and not really getting and grasping fully what it is to want to be a mother and going through these struggles. And then me being sidetracked on trying to establish a career and things like that. And so um, that's kind of, if I could go back and shake my younger self, I'd definitely go back and kind of, nudge myself and say, hey, pay more attention, need
Yeah.
to be there more. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that was, she always gives me a hard time that I almost made it worse by trying to neck, but
that's just what you told me about the stretching it. He was like, "Oh, I offered to rub your neck and that could have dislodged the blood
yeah.
clot and killed you." I'm like, "Oh,
Ooh.
glad
Uh,
that happened."
Yeah.
the
And
Lord
so
was on your side.
Yeah.
yeah. And then I think the thing that neither one of us really expected or planned for Um, so all the sperm that I banked before my first chemo, that's all we've ever had.
Mhm.
Um, because before, um, I think just after Hudson was born, a year later maybe, I got cancer a second time. And so everyone always asked, "Oh, did it come back?" No, I had testicular cancer twice. I won the lottery there.
Wow.
And so I was too close to my previous chemo to bank any additional sperm.
Mhm.
And then obviously they had to take away the tumor. So um, I have no more banked sperm because we used the rest of it to uh, to do Nora's transfer or harvest. Uh,
Nora's the baby.
Maybe, yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah,
Our,
North
our
baby.
youngest, our youngest, uh, the the retrieval that she came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
And see, and that in itself was another kind of crazy story. When we did the 5K, they gave like an entire IVF cycle, but then they also gave like a $5,000 grant to go towards one.
Mm,
And the girl that happened to win that, or her and her husband, she sent me a text. Like we kind of kept in touch because we did our first cycles and we both got pregnant with boys and we both had them like, I mean, our transfers, I mean, everything with IVF is so regulated, as you know. It's like
Yeah.
they get everybody on the same period cycle and then they get everybody, exactly. So they're only in there on those days. So
right.
I think our babies are 1 day apart because we both ended up having them almost 2 weeks early.
Mhm.
But we kept in contact and she sent me a text and she's like, "Hey, are you participating in the study at Idaho Center for Reproductive?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Oh, there's this study that they're doing. It was like $4,950 and for a whole cycle and it included all of your medication."
Wow.
And so we were in DC at the time. James was doing like a interview audition. What were you doing? Something for residency.
Yeah.
Um, and so we were just staying with him for a couple months while he was out in DC. And pretty much immediately, I called Idaho Center for Reproductive Medicine and asked them the details and if we would qualify. And they were like, obviously we have to run all of their tests, but from what we already know about you, yes, you would qualify. So come on out and let's do it. So we flew back home, me and the kids. And again, James stayed in DC. And, jumping back to what James was saying about me being independent and things like that, I think at the time, also my younger self was very much like, oh, I'm going to be a supportive wife and I'm not going to let this like distract from his goals too. It was just kind of this idea of like we're going to support each other but also be independent.
Mhm.
But I think looking back in the moment, I was always fine with it, but then like later, it was almost like I was holding all of these tokens of like, well, I did this and
Yeah.
you did nothing,
It was
and
all boiling up.
yeah, I get like really resentful later if things like didn't go my way, like very immature.
Mhm.
But anyway, so we flew back and basically everything for me checked out good. But one of their requirements, and this is insane, was you had to have at least one viable sperm from like to use. And we were like, oh, I'm sure James has one sperm. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sure he does. And so he came back and did his sperm sample, and literally they found one sperm.
Oh my
One.
goodness. Wow.
Unheard of that it would not be zero, or at least like, honestly, a million sounds very low.
Yeah.
Well, very high, but a million is pretty much nothing for sperm, too.
Right.
So for them to find one was crazy. And we didn't have to use it. They said like we could still use the bank sperm, but you still had to have one to qualify for the study. So he did. We qualified. And then, yeah, like literally the day we went in to go through our fertility calendar and everything with them and get our schedule, James felt like something was going on again. We set up our appointment and we were both kind of like, do we do this if you have cancer? Or like, what do we do? And we had been through this before. And so I remember just telling James, I was like, well, I think, his first time through, he had done chemo for 12 weeks. And I just said, you'll barf for the first 12 weeks. And so will I. Like, we might as well. Like,
We'll
let's
just do it together. We'll be
do it
sick together.
together. We'll just
Oh my
bond
gosh.
over it.
Yeah.
And luckily I really don't, other than Hudson's craziness, and that didn't happen this time. Yeah, luckily I don't really get sick. So for me, the pregnancy, they're generally really easy and I'm very lucky. So it was like just us going to doctor's appointments at the same time and then yeah, going through it, and he got done with chemo and I was out of the first trimester, and we were like, well, you can't get testicular cancer 3 times.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I
So,
joke because, a lot of my friends have missed the birth of their child or something like that because they were working or things like that. At
Mhm.
least, and thankfully, I didn't miss any birth. I was there for all of them.
yeah.
Those were all crazy in their own right. But I don't think I was there for a single conception. And so I don't think that any man outside of IVF can ever say that I was usually in a different state when my kids were conceived. And thankfully I was there. And they're all mine. And
Yeah, I joke that I was knocked up by a lady with my mom, and usually our oldest, I mean technically our oldest was there for every one. Like she would come
Yeah.
sit on my mom's lap, and obviously she was there for the first round. But yeah, so I always am like, yeah, I got knocked up by a lady with my mom, and my daughter in the room. Is
yeah.
that not normal? So, and
It's
my
our
husband is
normal, right?
not there. Yeah.
It's worked for us. I don't know what's wrong with everybody else, but okay. Okay. So you had baby number one, and then you got diagnosed with the cancer the first time. And so took care of that. Baby number two, another diagnosis,
Yep.
and then baby number three. And
Mhm.
so you've been cancer free.
Yep.
So yeah, so tell us how the infertility side of things affected your marriage, because obviously you'll have a very interesting, just intriguing story when it comes to your relationship. So tell us all about that, how it impacted your marriage, if you guys coped differently, and then basically, yeah, just where it ended and then started again.
Do you want to go first or do you want me to?
You can go first.
Um, I think, I mean, obviously anybody that has gone through fertility struggles, it's so hard. It
Mhm.
is just an emotional roller coaster, and then throw so many added hormones on it. I mean, pregnancy, you're hormonal enough, and not that I just want to like blame everything on hormones, but I do think
Right.
that they're so elevated from all the medications and everything else that it is really easy to be way overly sensitive. And also, like I said, for me, there were a lot of things about it that made me really resentful. And when we had other little problems, it was like just kind of another one of those things that it was like, we've been through so much. Like, why can't we just fix this problem? Like,
Mhm.
why can't you agree with me? Why can't I agree with you? Why can't we? It was just, it was almost kind of adding to the other issues that we had in our marriage because it was such a hard thing. And between that and cancer, we were like, that was another thing too. When you're constantly just like fighting life, everything else kind of gets pushed to the side. And it's really easy to not focus on date nights or growing closer together or anything else like that because you're just in this survival mode. And so then it seemed like when all that went away and our problems kind of came to the surface, it was just, things really fell apart. But at the same time, you know, James was saying are really religious. And I think for me, so every time we had our kids, well, after Hudson and Isla, we didn't have any embryos left. We always had to do a fresh cycle. After we had Nora, we had one embryo left. We know it's a girl because part of the study was they genetically tested them. And so when our marriage like really fell apart and we did end up getting divorced, that still was really hard on me, but also because we had fought so hard to have our kids. And
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that has kids after struggling with fertility, I feel like just feels like their kids are way better than anybody else's.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and I just was, we both were like, these kids deserve so much more because we fought so hard to bring them here. Like, we need to stay a family. And so, even throughout our whole divorce, I mean, if you ask anybody, they were always like, we just don't know why you're divorced because you go to church together every week and you see each other every day and you live
Yeah.
down the street from each other pretty much. Like, what are you doing? And why don't you just, get over yourselves and fix it? And, it took us, I mean, we've been between our divorce and separation part, what, 7 years?
Yeah.
7 years, six,
Mhm.
seven. And so sorry, that was real. It really has been 6 or 7 years.
She's been in the car
I've
with
been
the
in the
kids.
car with kids for, like 4 days now. I can't
Yeah.
tell you how many times I've heard
Understandable.
7. Um, and so yeah, it was just like we are still family. Even if we don't look like a conventional family, that was really important to us. And I just always had this feeling of we also have this baby. Like to me, it's not an embryo. And I mean, for the first few years after we got divorced, I was like, James, why don't we just have another baby? Like we
Yeah.
already take, and people are like, you're nuts, Tori. Like, why does it matter? And he was just like, I'm not having a baby with someone I'm not married to. I'm like, why? You already have 3 with someone you're not married to. The same thing. Like, and we get along, it'll be fine, it'll fit in with its siblings, like it won't know any different. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy, but why not? And he probably was much smarter than I am, but that was a good call. But at the same time, he was like weighed so heavily on me that we like have this baby. And even now, like our youngest is almost 10 now.
Wow.
And so thinking about having another one and starting all over, like that sounds crazy to me, but it's definitely something that, we've been thinking a lot about
Mhm.
and just praying about, is this just because in my mind I'm like, why would this be the only time we had one left? Like
Yeah.
all the other times we didn't. Why is there this one? Why do we know it's a girl? Like we never knew what our other ones were. It just
Right.
makes it so much more real to me and not just this frozen egg somewhere in another state. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I got engaged to somebody else a little over a year ago. And then
Really just unraveling it all for you.
yeah, and,
Full story.
and then yeah, and then I just there were still these things like mostly the IVF and the family and the baby and this idea that if I married someone else, then we weren't going to be a family anymore. And that like killed me. I was like, it's not going to be the same anymore. And so then, yeah, I ended that relationship and James and I kind of talked about dating and went on a few dates. We were like, hey, how are we going to make this work? What are we going to do? And then in August, I got in 2 car accidents in 1 week. I haven't been in a car accident since I was like 16 in high school. And I called James and I was like, so do you want to get married tomorrow? Like, let's just, I just told him, I said, you have always been my best friend. We've been through so much together. And he's who I call if something good happens, something bad happens. Like, we still have our problems, but at the end of the day, like, he is who I need in my life. And part of that is because he's the father of my kids, but a lot of that is just because of who he is to me. And so luckily he talked me out of going to the courthouse and we went and surprised. We didn't tell our kids we were getting married and we just took them out. Like this is how abnormal our relationship was. We told them we were going to go get family pictures and they were like, "Okay, that sounds good," because that's something that we still did. We would still go get family pictures together. And so that was our excuse to get dressed up. We went out to the lake to take family pictures and then we were like, "Oh, by the way, we're getting married right now." So, and
Right
did.
this minute.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
That is so fun.
It's awesome.
Uh,
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, but um no, kind of going way back. Thankfully, Tori told the whole story, so I don't have to tell most of it. I think I never really put conscious thought to it until um I got, Tori told me about this. Um, I think I've always been a little bit like had a little bit of shame being the cause for this, right? And I think, I didn't really put it in my thought way back, 13 years ago when all this was 15 years ago or whatever, when this was all starting. But but definitely there was this little bit of like, embarrassment that I'm the cause for it, that I'm the reason why we can't have this. And I think that regardless of whether it's man or woman, that ultimately, or both, that ultimately leads to needing IVF, or I think it's, whether you put conscious thought to it or not, I think a lot of people struggle with that as well. And I think that really hit home with me after my second time with cancer. I think the first one, I was just so like, okay, here's what we do. We've got a newborn. I'm in med school. There's no stopping. There's no thinking. You just gotta keep pushing. And so I didn't really take any time to think about the added stress that it was going to put on her, the fact that I'm gone at school all day, and when I'm not at school, I'm in a chemo bay. And when I'm not in a chemo bay, I'm worthless at home. And here she is raising a newborn. Um, and so I didn't really think about all that stuff and how that would impact us long term. I just kind of put my mind into like, okay, buckle down, drive through. Like
mhm.
there will be an end, just it's 12 weeks. Just and then that 12 weeks turned into, it's 3 more years of med school. And then it's 4 more years of residency. Just buckle down and go through. When you get through this storm, you'll have time to sit back and, then you can really fix things. And so, like Tori said, we were always in crisis mode, whether it was because of, choosing a difficult career path that just is very time demanding, whether it's difficult or not, it's just time demanding, or battling infertility or fighting cancer. We were just always in survival mode. And we moved every 4 years. And so every 4 years we're pulled from our support system. And thankfully we have, our beliefs and our church, and everywhere we went, we were adopted into this new support system right away. And a lot of people don't have that, but and we were pretty blessed to have that, but we got so stuck in survival mode, I think both of us, that every little problem, I don't need to go through the list for you guys, but every little problem was just, we'll deal with that later. We're got to focus on this. We'll deal with that later. And then communication and everything, we were just kind of, I think we both really felt like, we were colleagues in this business of life that we were just there making it happen for our kids and for us, but
Mhm.
we weren't really a team. We were just kind of, you have your jobs, I have my jobs. You're doing your job great, I'm doing my job great, but there was no extra. And I think Tori, rightfully so, recognized that, that was significantly lacking um, when we ended up getting separated. And as hard as those years were, for their own reasons, um, it's nice, I think God gave us a break on I think every step of the way, he gave us just enough that we could handle, but not enough to overpower us.
Mhm.
And so when we were struggling with us, we were just blessed with amazing, wonderful kids who do everything that they need to do, and they really could raise themselves. Thankfully,
Mhm.
they don't have to, but they could. And so I think life stopped throwing us, haymakers, and we both had time to grow up and learn about ourselves and become our own people. And and I think my perspective of this whole thing is she became her own person and I went and became my own person. And when we looked back at each other, we realized, wow, I really like the person she is. I like the person he is. Um, Instead of being stuck and saying, oh, they became someone I don't like anymore. It definitely grew and we grew in our own directions. But ultimately grew towards a common goal and throughout the whole thing, we always put the kids first.
Mhm.
It wasn't always easy to go on family trips together and um, not just like argue all the time. But we always, love the kids, put them first, and put ourselves aside so that they could have the family that they need. And I think all of that unknowingly allowed us to grow back together. So that when we did start dating, it was not, I'm getting to know this person. Like, yes, there was some of that. Uh, but it was a little bit of getting to know this person, this girl that I started dating when I was 16 years old, and because she wanted to go to a dance and I was an upperclassman. Um, and she knew I was too shy to have a date, so she kind of, anyways, we'll skip that. But I knew all of that. I knew all of that, and I just got to know, the newer version. But we are already really good friends, and it
Mhm.
it just took a little bit of shift in focus. And it was really quite amazing how quickly some of those old feelings came back and new feelings came. And when she crashed my car and totaled it, well, she already totaled her car. I figured I'm already paying for her to crash my car. I might as well be married to her. No,
Wow.
no, it was kind of funny. We both put a significant amount of thought into, months of thought into whether or not we should be dating. And then once we made that decision, it wasn't like, oh, we'll try it out and see if it fits. It was, if we're going to do this, there's going to be a lot of hard things, and we can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We have to be all in. And so that decision to date was a huge decision. And then even bigger decision was to tell our kids, because once they knew that we were dating, there was really no going back.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna do
Yeah,
that to
put that
them.
through them through that again.
And so we didn't tell them until we absolutely knew. And once we did that, it kind of felt like well, now we're just waiting for the acceptable amount of time to get married, but what are we waiting for? We can work on these issues as a married couple, or we can work on these issues as a dating couple. But
Mhm.
we're both going to the end, we're going to get married regardless. It's
Mhm.
just, and so, um, yeah.
How long did y'all date before you got remarried?
I really think we went on like 3 dates.
Um,
Well, he like asked me to be his girlfriend actually,
and then
and
she broke up with
I
me.
well, I was like, I feel like it's so easy to like slip into old habits, like especially
Mhm.
if you're comfortable with someone, you know. And so, I mean, he did something, and I was like, no, if I'm going to be your girlfriend, then I want you to treat me like a girlfriend and not like your friend, you know. You need
Right.
to step up. Like you can't do this. And so, and he did. And
We
yeah,
didn't we didn't go on a lot of like official dates, like
yeah,
Okay.
we were go do things, but we went on walks
yeah,
together at night after putting the kids to bed. We'd go on walks almost, I don't know, we did that for months,
yeah,
almost every night.
yeah,
Um, so I think we dated probably 6 months ish.
yeah. Not that long.
So
6 months-ish. Okay. Wow.
ish.
That is an incredible story. I mean, it's just an incredible journey. Because one thing I did when we first found out was I did, get on like different infertility support groups. I don't know if y'all did that, but some faith-based, some just general. And one thing that I noticed that I thought was so sad and would make the journey just so much lonelier was a lot of women posting and just saying, talking about their spouse and just saying, we're not seeing eye to eye, or whether it was on the treatment or, they wanted to keep trying or whatever, and just not recognizing the emotional, financial, and physical toll that it really is taking on both of you. Because, like you said, regardless of who's the cause of it, or who has the infertility issue, it's such a heavy thing for both of you.
Mhm.
So, anyway, that's just one thing that I love about your story is that, you had very, very hard things. I mean, infertility aside, just the cancer and the rigorous school schedule would do people in. But you guys still chose to be a family even after the marriage dissolved. And then you were able to resolve that and put those pieces back together. And I just think that's beautiful. And I think it's, yeah, just a beautiful story of hope and positivity. Um, so, and I guess we'll probably wrap it up, but just one last question. Is there any advice or anything that you want our listeners to like hear or to know before we close?
I was actually thinking about that a lot this weekend. I went and saw this movie, and some people may have heard of it, some haven't. It's called Stand Out. It's the Ben Care story, uh,
Mhm.
about this wrestler that has a genetic disorder. And they end up going through fertility treatments, and I won't tell the whole story, but just I mean, I was sobbing in the movie theater as I'm watching, their struggle with infertility. And, my daughter was laughing at me. She's like, "You're such a crybaby, mom." Like, I just remember those feelings. So, like, those feelings do not go away.
Mhm.
In their story, it's a beautiful story, and they chose to keep it totally private. They did not tell anyone that they were going through this. And I was the exact opposite. I mean, I told everyone and I talked to everyone about it. And for me, that would be my advice is you don't necessarily have to talk to everybody, but find somebody
Yes,
and
support.
somebody other than your spouse, because there are going to be times that they're not always on the same page, or maybe just are honestly too emotionally drained from it too to be a support. And so find a support group. That is totally life-changing. I can't tell you how many people, people that I was like, I will have nothing in common with you, lady. And then, like we had people from church that would come, ladies from church that would come visit me once a month. And I was like, why am I getting paired up with people that are like my mom's friends? Like they're so old that they don't know what I'm going through. Then I just opened up to her and she was like, oh my gosh, we used Dr. Slater. And I was like, I didn't even know that your kids were not like hers. Some were not biologically hers, some they had done IVF. And, you know, just all the wisdom that she gave me that I just thought we would have nothing to talk about. And, the support she gave me when we miscarried. And I mean, just having people on your side to be there when things go well or when things go wrong is huge. And I think that if I had been willing to be more open about my marriage as I was about our IVF and had that outside support, um, I think things would have been a lot different. So I definitely think even though it's so hard to go through, and sometimes it really is hard to open up to other people about your struggles, if you can find a support group, that's the best thing you can do for yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback off that, I was thinking, as odd as it sounds, how grateful I am that we've gone through this, because of the people that I've been able to meet.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've always felt like we were magnets for people with fertility issues, and I think it is because, I mean, even though we've lived all over the country, everywhere we go, we become good friends or have close connections with people who've been had a similar story to ours.
Mhm.
And whether it was going through, infertility or going through cancer, I think we both were able to vent those things. And because we did, we came across amazing people, lifelong friends, lifelong connections with a lot of amazing people who really guided us and helped us. And because of that, I really feel incredibly blessed to have gone through all of it.
Mhm.
Just from the things that I've learned, from the people I've been able to meet, and I think ultimately the relationship that it's been able to bind Tori and I. It's just been difficult at times for sure, but um, always felt incredibly blessed through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for being willing to share your story and for being our first podcast guest. So
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us. It was great.
thank you. Thanks. Yeah, we love, yeah, just getting to talk to people, kind of the same thing, getting to talk to people, learn their story. And it creates such a big, sense of community, which is huge and definitely something that, we all need more than we realize. So we really appreciate y'all taking the time and being vulnerable and sharing everything with us.
Thank you.